Hi guys, welcome back to the channel. Do you know how to cut and edit a few clips that you filmed in the field into a beautiful final video? If not, I think you will find watching this video till the end very helpful. For the years before I started my YouTube channel, I fully neglected taking videos in the field, and it's one of my biggest regrets because I think back of all these moments that I could have also captured in motion and not just stills. There's nothing I can do now, but video is becoming more and more important by the minute, and it's definitely here to stay. Whether we like it or not, video content and creating video content and editing it is becoming more and more important. So today I want to show you how you can select a few clips, cut them, put them together, edit them, export them, and create a beautiful final video file. The first thing that you need when it comes to video editing is a video editing program, and there's basically three options: Apple Final Cut Pro, DaVinci Resolve, and Adobe Premiere Pro. When it comes to the abilities, all these three programs are pretty similar, I'd say, but there's one big distinguishing factor, and that's DaVinci Resolve is free. So at least the basic version is free, and for most people that's what I would recommend because you can get into filming and video editing at no additional cost. So that's a program that I'm going to use. I'm using the studio version now, which is paid, that gives you a few extra features, but I'm very happy with DaVinci Resolve Studio, what I'm using now, and it works very well on my M1 Max MacBook Pro and on that Windows computer that we're going to be using today for editing. At the beginning of this video, we watched this clip of an eastern whipbird hopping through the rainforest and then giving us a taste of its unique call, and now I want to show you exactly how I put that clip together and how you can also learn to put clips together like that in no time. So let's jump right in. So the first thing we see when we open DaVinci Resolve is this window with the databases, and that's where we're just going to start a new project. Here you see some of my older projects. So all you need to do here is go to new project, let's call it Whipbird, and create. And now we're in DaVinci Resolve, and it looks very scary and very overwhelming, but don't be afraid. I'm going to guide you through it and show you a way to quickly and efficiently edit a few videos. So this tab, the cut tab, we don't really need to use. The media tab down here, we don't really need to use. Most of our work will be done in the editing tab, the color tab, and the delivery tab. So let's go to the edit tab. To arrange it in a way, on the side here we have some tools like some of the transitions that we will need at some point. In the middle here, that's where our timeline is, where we construct our video. Up here is where we will be watching our video, and over here there's a preview of the clips that we're going to be importing now. So the very first thing I always like to do is to actually set up the right settings for my project. How do I do that? I go to File, Project Settings. And at the timeline resolution, we now want to decide what resolution do we want to edit in. Usually just whichever resolution our source footage is, or whichever footage you want to export. So I'm working on 4K footage and I want to export it as 4K footage, so I set it to Ultra HD 4K footage, and my footage was framed at 25 frames per second, so I set that at 25 frames per second. If you're using different resolution or different frames per second, you want to change it to whatever you want to set. Now we need our clips that we want to work on. What I usually do, I have a few clips that are put into different folders, and then I can drag the folders directly into here. So I prepared a folder for us on the desktop that's called Whipbirds, and I can just grab it and drag it into here. And now you can see I have one song here and then a few clips. So now we get to the interesting bit, our timeline down here, where we're going to create our video. It's divided in two sections. At the bottom is all our audio, and at the top is our video. So if I'm going to drag a video clip in here, for instance, you now see that there's the video and below there's the audio. By the way, if I zoom in and out like this by holding down the Alt key and scrolling the wheel on my mouse. So over here as well, you notice the red playhead, and that you can drag around with your mouse, or you can hit the space bar for it to play and to stop. And you can also freely move these clips around on this timeline in whichever way you want. And if you have more than one video or audio, you can also move these up and down to make more space between the different clips. One thing that's very helpful with video editing is keyboard shortcuts. So throughout I will mention a bunch of keyboard shortcuts that I use all the time because it makes your editing so much faster. For instance, I can click Control B and it instantly cuts my video and I don't have to wait and go through the menu or do other things. So there's a lot of different things that you can do to really speed up the editing process, and shortcuts are definitely one of them. So it's good to remember at least a few key custom shortcuts. So now you see that when I want to play this clip, that it plays okay, but when I try to scrub through it, it's not very smooth. And that's because it's filmed in a Canon H.265 10-bit C-Log format, and that's a real killer for almost all computers. So in order for this clip to play smooth, I click right, generate optimized media, and within a few seconds, depending on how long your clip is, it will now render a proxy basically that now allows me to scroll through this clip without problems. So whenever your clip is not playing, this is a good solution to make it play. Or if it's still not playing well, you could go up here to playback, timeline proxy mode, and you could go to half resolution or quarter resolution. This will lower the resolution of your timeline. And if you go to quarter resolution, it will basically play on all computers. But for us here on this good computer, the optimized media should be enough. So let me show you how to work with these clips. If you want to adjust the clips, you can either just drag the left side and pull it into where you want it to start, or you can do the same on the other side. You can also do the same on the audio, or you can say, I want to cut out a bit in the middle, so press Ctrl B, move the head over, press Ctrl B, and now I could say maybe I want to remove this bit in the middle. I can either do that by pressing backspace and it will delete it and leaving a gap, or I press Ctrl Z to bring it back. And I could also press the delete button, and if I press delete, it will automatically move the two clips that I've just created together. So that's basically the basics of cutting a video clip and finding different sections of the video clip. For instance, you could also cut off the end and move it to the beginning, or you could cut the middle, move it between the two clips, overlaying it and overlaying the audio. So essentially you have to think of the timeline as a puzzle. You have all these different video clips, audio, text, photos maybe, and we want to put them together into one nice clip. And we do that by arranging them in the order that we want them to. For instance, as well, we can stack the clips on top of one another, and whichever clip is at the top will show, just like layers in Photoshop. The top layer is always the one that shows and usually hides the layers below. What I usually like to do first is add the audio. As you can see here, the waveform on this audio song are very high. And you can maybe see here in the audio tab, there's a little line, and I can pull this up to make it louder or pull it down to make it a lot more quiet. And in our case, I want to pull it down a lot because I don't really want the music to distract from the bird. I just want it to quietly play in the background. So that's essentially our first job done. We won't be using this whole song, but for now I just leave it as it is, and it might still be a little bit too loud, so I just drag that down a little bit more. And now it's on us to find the right order of these clips. So I know that this clip starts with the bird not being here and then hopping into the scene. So I think that would be a fantastic start. Over here you see as well, you can either only drag the audio in, or you can only drag the clip in, or if you drag it from up here, you can drag both in. The only thing you have to be careful of is if you pull something in and lay it over something else, it will remove it. So in our case, it might actually be easier to pull the song down a bit more, so we can pull the audio and the clip just into the middle. But you can also obviously just move the audio down by itself. You just have to be careful that you don't move the audio to the left or the right, because then you see the red numbers coming up, and that means now it's out of sync. On this clip, we don't need the audio, so we can delete that. So I generated the optimized media, and now we can quickly just scroll through this clip. I just wanted somewhere here where it hops in. So there. And now I select this clip and then press Ctrl B. That means it will now only cut my video. If I press Ctrl B and select nothing, it will also cut the audio at the bottom, which is great if you want to move the audio of the clip, but this clip doesn't have any audio, so we're just gonna not do that and only move the clip. And now if I press delete, you can see it also deletes part of my music. I don't want that. So in this case, I have to press backspace to delete the video, and then I just manually move the video over, but I leave a little gap because what I want to do, I just want to put a very easy cross dissolve transition at the start. In the toolbox, you have a few different transitions on this side that do different things. You can just play around with these. I like the cross dissolve because it basically comes out of nowhere, and then we have the bird hopping into our frame. And what's important with videos, you don't want to have just the one scene for a very long time. Ideally, you want to cut between different scenes and different clips. So this bird being on this log for about 6 seconds is about a good time. So I do a little cut here, and I just move this bit up and over to be used at a later stage. What you might notice as well, that there's a little black gap at the top and the bottom here. So I'm just going to scroll down to retime and scaling and do fill. This gap is there because I filmed in the wider format on the R5, and in most other cameras it will probably not even be there, but if there's a gap you can always fill it there. Or you could also go to the zoom up here on the right hand side where you can transform your video. So you could, for instance, just zoom in a little bit, or you can move your video up, down, left or right. So for instance, we could also say we zoom in, we move the bird over a bit, and then we move it down a little bit. We don't need any of that. All we need to do here is just to fill it. Then I quickly just rewatch it. Bird coming in, looking around. And what I now envision is cutting to a bit where the bird is a little bit more zoomed in. So that would either be this video or this other video, and this looks more like, so I'm going to drag this in. I also don't need the audio, and again you can see it's a little bit slow, so I quickly generate the optimized media. And what I want to find now is a scene in the second clip that kind of matches the first clip. So ideally, for instance, the bird's kind of going from the left to the right. So I'm going through this clip. Is there anywhere? See, that pose looks pretty good. To make this a good transition, I want to cut off the first clip when the bird is just moving. So just somewhere here, it just starts moving. I cut it, press backspace to delete it. Now go to the second video and I go to the bit also when the bird is just moving somewhere here. I can just move that in like that. And if I put these two together, these should hopefully match up. And you can see this flows very well. The bird's hopping in, looking over, looking up, and I basically got it in the same pose in the wider clip and then the more zoomed in clip. So this flows perfectly now. And now it hops out of the frame here, which is a problem for us. But what we can just do is do another cut here and then just cut back to a wider scene when it starts running. Then I grab the clip from before and see if there's any movement in the clip that works well. So I can either move the clip around here, or I can grab it, for instance, and put it in. It will pre-play it for me. So we can actually see there's a scene here. So if we cut it around there, this should actually match up quite nicely there. So now we have the 1, 2. It looks like it hops back into the frame. So I've now played around with this a little bit for you, because not to bore you too much, I just try to align the poses of the birds and the flow of the video as much as possible. And now I'm just watching back what I've just done. First transition, very nice. Second transition also flows very nicely. Third one, pretty good, I'd say. Looking up, okay, that still doesn't flow too well. We want it actually when the head's already up. So somewhere there. Wider, and we have it hopping off. And now at the end, for a bit of drama, we wanted calling. So you can see this time when I wanted it calling, I pulled the clip up from here, so I have the audio and the video of the clip. I generate the optimized media, I quickly just fill it as well. And now I need to find a transition from hopping onto the next bit. So it's hopping off, and I wanted to basically hop on. So probably somewhere there might work. Control B to get rid of it, and then delete to move the clip over. And then you can see it hops onto the branch, we cut it, we delete it with backspace, and I put another transition on it, this time dip to color dissolve. And what that does is it just makes it black again. And at the end here, when it's calling, I actually want the music to go more quiet. First of all, I want the call to be a bit louder. So I drag that up, but you can actually see that I have been now clipping the loud call up here. I don't want to do that. So I press down the Alt key and I press twice and make 2 of these red little dots, which now allow me to only move the audio between these 2 areas. If you just did 1 dot, it would mean that you're just still moving everything between that. So having the 2 dots allows you to just do the audio in the 1 area. When the bird starts calling, I want to make the audio more quiet, and so I do 2 dots again. So from this anchors it in, and then this is the one that allows me to drag it. So I make it very quiet, and then at the end here I do 2 more, drag it over and let it then go to 0. And then here when we finish the video we can also cut it off and delete it. And there we go, a neat little clip of the whipbird. So now some of this might feel a little bit fast for you, but you can re-watch this video a couple of times. There's a lot of other resources on YouTube as well about how to edit in-depth video. What I really want to show you today, that it's actually not that difficult to do video editing, and that if you follow a few steps and do it a few times, it's actually quite easy to learn. You can put together some beautiful clips that you can post on YouTube, Instagram, or wherever you want. And if you're not only interested in video editing but also photo editing, I would highly recommend that you check out my Pro Sets and Masterclass down there in the description, where I teach you step by step how to improve your editing and make your own images look amazing. So make sure to check that out. So with this clip, now I'm happy with that kind of rough cut and the transitions and the audio. What I want to do now is I want to stabilize the video, because you could see there was a little bit of shaking because I was hand holding it. And then I also want to edit the colors, because they're pretty dull and dark, because this was filmed in a dark forest in C-Log format. So you have to do some editing. You can either use LUTs, which are like predetermined presets to put over your images, but here I show you how you can also pretty easily, pretty quickly correct the colors just with a few wheels. So let's do that now. To correct the colors, we're now going to the color tab down here. And here you see a representation of all your clips in your timeline. And up here we have our tabs. So think of this a little bit like layers in Photoshop. So we do a few different ones, and when you press Alt and S, you can create more of these tabs. I usually do like 2 or 3 in the end. So the first thing, I slide this video to a spot where I can judge the colors properly. Somewhere here with the bird looking good. And now we have these wheels down here. Make sure it's primaries and it says wheels, not log. And think of these as your blacks and shadows, your midtones, and your highlights. The gain is basically like your exposure slider in camera raw. And the offset moves everything. The gain mainly moves the highlights but also bleeds into the midtones. The midtones moves mainly the midtones but also bleeds into the highlights and the blacks. And the blacks moves mainly the blacks but also bleeds into the midtones. Whereas offset basically moves everything at the same time. So what we want to do here with this video, we obviously want to give it more contrast, make it brighter, add more blacks, and then see where we stand. So to use these wheels, you see down here these actual little wheelie bits. So what we can do, we just wheel this to the right to a point where we think the highlight looks pretty good, somewhere here. What I like to do then, I like to play with the blacks to get that to a good point. Don't want to have it too dark. We also want to add a little bit more contrast. And then we also have these shadow and highlight sliders, and they work exactly like the shadow and highlight sliders would work in Photoshop, Camera Raw, Lightroom. So I lift the shadows a little bit. You can also see what happens if we add the offset a little bit, giving us more brightness overall, which looks very good. Now I just think the blacks are not dark enough because it was a dark rainforest scene, so I like it somewhere there. You also have the tint up here. Can make it a little bit more green or a little bit more purple. I think I like a tiny bit more purple. Now you might say, do you have to do this on every single clip? And basically yes, but there's obviously also a few ways to copy what you've done to one clip to the other clip to save you a lot of time. So what we can do now, because all these clips were basically filmed in exactly the same light except for the last one, I can click on this second clip and then I press with the mouse wheel onto the first clip and it copies over all the settings. And what you can also do, all the clips that you want to do at the same time, you can hold down Control, select all the clips you want to change, and then click on the clip that you want to copy the changes from, and then you see you have all your changes there. What I also want to do is add a little bit of sharpening. To do that, I'll just do a new window. Up here, Alt and S, and then down here, we can go to sharpening where it says radius and pull that down slightly to around 47. And that gives us a little bit more bite in the image. So one more thing you notice now that some of these clips are not super stable because they were handheld. So I can click onto the tracker tab, click where it says window, go to stabilizer, and then I like to use the translation stabilizer. So I run that, it's analyzing the video, and now you can see how it's completely stable. One thing you have to keep in mind, you cannot actually copy the stabilization over. You have to do that individual for each clip because otherwise it just copies what it has done on this clip to that clip, but that obviously doesn't apply to that clip. So the stabilization has to be done individually. And that's pretty much the editing done more or less. So what we do now is to just export our video. So I go to the Deliver tab and there's a few different options up here for you. What I've done a personal one for me for YouTube that works very well. So I give that a name. And then here you can just see my settings. I exported in QuickTime, H265. This just says what it's going to use to encode it. I'm going to use my NVIDIA graphic card. 4K resolution, 25 frames per second. And then I don't want to have the too large files. So I restrict the quality to about double my frame rate, basically 50,000 KB. And then the rest stays the same. What we need to do then as well is add it to the render queue, select where we want to save it, click save and render it. So depending on your computer, this rendering can take a very long time or just a few minutes. This one will take another 25 seconds because it's a pretty fast computer and the clip isn't very long. But if you're rendering a 1 hour long 4K video, that will probably take 2 or 3 hours to render on most computers. So rendering and video editing is definitely something that's a little bit time consuming, but I hope actually with today's video I could show you that it's also a fun process to have your clips from the field and then put all the puzzle pieces together into one really nice to look at final clip. And obviously you can play a lot more around with audio and effects and the editing, but today I really wanted to show you just one basic clip with some audio, some video and the bird calling. One thing I would do, for instance, was if I had some nice rainforest audio, I would overlay that over the whole clip. So I have the music, I have the birds kind of making some sounds, and then I have the bird calling. Because the more kind of audio features you have, the nicer it is to listen to your video. That will make a big difference. But for this basic tutorial, I think it was enough to just show you how to work with a few different things. And hopefully you're not as scared of video editing as much as you were before watching this, because I know for me that was probably the biggest obstacle of getting into filming, that I just wasn't sure what to do, how to edit, what to do with my clips. What would I do if I film in C-Log? How can I work with the clips? How can I make the colors look right? So I hope today's video could shine some light onto this process for you and make it a little bit easier. So make sure to leave me a comment below. Let me know, are you doing video editing? Has this helped you? Are you afraid of video editing? Are you going to try it now? Give me a thumbs up for the video. Make sure to check out my masterclass and pro sets when you want to learn more about photo editing. And subscribe to the channel, and we will see you in the next video very soon. Bye!